Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology, the only backpacking podcast where the hosts are so obsessed with travelling they can scarcely sit still. I'm Alun and I'm here with my best friend, one of the greatest travellers of all time, the ever muscular Adam.
Alun, I'm so pumped for this episode, mate. I can't wait to tell you we've got an amazing show for you guys. Thanks ever so much for joining us for another fantastic week. I went sea kayaking in the Marlborough Sounds. Loads of things happened. Can't wait to tell you about it. And then, of course, stay tuned at the end for the Lost and Found section. We're going to tell you a couple of stories that we haven't thought of yet.
Amazing. More travel stories from you in New Zealand. Of course, the last episode we did about you travelling on the Routeburn track got so successful, went so viral on Spotify, they entered into the UK top 100 podcast list and really emboldened, galvanised our relationship with Swedish company Spotify, who now adore us so much that we're in the partnership programme. So thank you to Spotify and thank you to you, Adam, for travelling around New Zealand and coming up with such wonderful anecdotes.
That's quite all right. If you want any tips, guys, when you're titling episodes, just front load the keywords like Routeburn. It's a highly searchable term, Routeburn, and we're glad that it did it so well. I believe it got into the top 80, mate, that episode, and it was absolutely not because Spotify owed us an apology.
Top 80 UK podcasts. I mean, yeah, we are a podcast, undeniably from the UK, so I felt like that list was a good home for us. And I can't help but notice now when we're recording, we're both sort of recording in a nighttime setting because you are in New Zealand, of course, it is nighttime when we're recording. I'm in the UK where it's so early in the morning that the sun has yet to rise. So both opposite ends of the world, both at night, and I want to hear about Marlborough Sounds. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be forgiven. Maybe we can branch out, mate, into doing a bit of shadow puppeting. We can become a travel and shadow puppeting podcast. If I sit closer to the wall, people watching the video podcast, maybe that will be less disturbing. But Marlborough Sounds, mate, do you know where it is?
I imagine, off the top of my head, I think it's probably Australasian. I think if I can narrow my search a little bit more, I'd exclude Australia and I'd say it's probably somewhere a little bit south of that. Maybe New Zealand sort of area, South Island. Am I getting closer?
You are absolutely right, mate. It's the very northern tip of the South Island. It's an amazing region. Think of like sprawling landmass, mountains and hills dropping down into the ocean, loads of little inlets and bays and coves and that sort of stuff, which makes for unbelievable kayaking. So it's not something I've done a lot of, I'll be honest, but my partner and I, we went all the way up to the very northern tip to a place called French Pass. And we stayed there overnight and camped on the beach. Now, it's something I've always wanted to do, camping on the beach. And we went to this lovely, lovely little campsite, which it's quite funny remembering it, actually, because it was the most packed campsite I've ever been to. I mean, it was way too small for the number of vehicles that were in there. I think from memory, it's got 18 spaces. So you drive all the way up north through these gravel roads. I mean, you know what I'm like with cars as well. I absolutely hate.
Intolerable.
What's intolerable? The road or me driving the car?
No, I know how you are with cars, and that was my answer.
I'll blame that on the fact you've just woken up. But no, it was amazing getting to the campsite. We got there nice and early, and because we got there so early, there was no one else around sort of on our, what do you call it, a site, I suppose. So we backed the van right up along the beach, and it was going perfectly well. It was going absolutely perfectly. We had the rest of the day with this bay, mountains surrounding us, the sun was coming over. It was just so picturesque. It was perfect. And then cut to about an hour later, this family, even though they had, I don't know, another 12, 15 sites to choose from, they came and whacked their van and then their car and then their boat right next to our little minivan, our little Fergie. Oh. And I don't know if I'll ever grow out of this, mate, but I've still got this little niggling voice in my head that goes, why the fuck did you have to park next to us? Yeah.
And you have an issue, I think, keeping that voice internal. And I imagine that a little bit of it, even if you didn't say anything to the family, some of it leaked out either with a look or a sort of, you maybe like jabbed a pen into your own leg or something.
You're not too far wrong. So there we were, parked up against the beach. I saw the cars coming in. My partner looked at me and went, "Oh, that's a bit annoying, isn't it? That's a bit of a shame," because they had so many vehicles and a boat, and he had parked his car right up against the front of ours, much closer than you would have done, than would be socially acceptable. And then they started pitching a tent right next to our van. I mean, I saw them pacing it out as if that was going to make a difference, but they just took 3 long steps, which I imagine is equal to about 3 yards. Maybe there's some sort of camping rule in New Zealand. And then they put up this big sort of 4 to 6 berth tent right next to our camper van. And I walked over and spoke to the bloke, and he was super nice. He went, "Oh, don't worry, mate. The van won't be staying there." He's not from East London. Don't worry, mate. We'll move the van and that sort of stuff, give you a bit of space back. So I thought, that's all right. We're in absolute, dreamland here. It's such amazing scenery. So we decided to spend a couple of hours on the beach. And I actually sent you a picture, didn't I? We did that Stingray episode a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Slightly different flavour. I sent you a photo of a stingray from the shore, didn't I?
Oh, yeah, that little picture of a stingray that you sent me. Cute little thing it was.
You don't remember it? It was a little picture of a big stingray, because this area, the Marlborough Sounds region, is known for lots of stingrays. Especially up in French Pass and Alun Bay. We knew that there were going to be some in Alun Bay, which is where we're going in the second half of the episode, but we didn't realise there'd be some in French Pass. So we went down to the beach. We started seeing these stingrays ridiculously close to the shore. So shallow was the water that you could see their wings coming out of the water, because there just wasn't enough coverage for them.
Oh, no.
So that gives you an idea of...
Yeah, it must have looked, with the tip of the wing breaching the water, it must have looked like very many tiny sharks sort of all swimming in close succession to each other. Now, did you panic?
Did I? I didn't panic. No, I didn't go in the water, I'll be honest with you. But they were almost on land. Like, a few of them beached and then had to wait for a wave to drag them back in.
Mm. I'm surprised they didn't evolve and grow legs.
When the time that we were watching them. This place is mental.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, we were looking a little bit further down the beach, and we saw 2 little kids. I don't know, they're probably like 8 and 6, something like that, just launching rocks at these stingrays.
Oh.
that were just like a metre or 2 away from them. And we couldn't believe it. We thought, whose fucking kids are those? That's awful. There was a couple of families knocking about on the beach, and then the campsite, as I said, backs onto the beach. So a couple of families up the top when having a barbecue or whatever. I thought, this is absolutely unbelievable. And they were throwing lots of, clumps of sand at the stingrays and more rocks and stuff. And my partner and I were like, this is obscene. No one going to stop these kids. And then a woman walked over and had a word with who I later found out was the dad. And then I ended up having a chat with the kids. Stopped, obviously. They ran off. They got bored. They went to cause some other havoc. And then the dad was pulling a boat back onto the beach slightly later on. And he just looked at me and he sort of got chatting and that sort of stuff. And I said, "Oh, you come here a lot?" "Yeah, we come here every year, bring the kids and that sort of stuff." He said, "Oh, the stingrays, seen the stingrays?" "Yeah, you can even feed them if you want. You can feed the stingrays. Here you go." He gave me a big fish carcass that he'd just filleted and said, "Go on and go down there and you can, they're tame and everything." My partner came along and she fed one as well. And he said, "Yeah, they're harmless. I mean, I wouldn't get too close to them." Do you know what? It was funny, actually. My kids, they were throwing rocks at the stingrays earlier. And I was like, okay, yeah. "Oh, were they? Oh, that's fine."
"Do you want a rock, mate? Here's a rock. Now you've fed it. Why don't you twat it in the face with this rock?"
I said, "Oh, were they? Yeah, we didn't see. Yeah." He said, "Yeah, a woman came up to me and said, your kids shouldn't be doing that, throwing rocks at the stingrays." I said, "Well, it's better than them spearing it, isn't it, and killing a thing."
It's better than them doing a la Steve Irwin Revenge and pulling the stingers off.
Yeah. I mean, it is. And the only answer I didn't really know what to say, but I said, "Yeah, I suppose it is, yeah, throwing a rock at a stingray is better than them killing it." I suppose you've got a point there. But it's just, I mean, it is technically, but it was such a strange thing for him to kind of admit. So I went over and, a bit of gossip to the partner and that sort of stuff. And then just as we were finishing up dinner that night, our next door neighbours came over And they said, look, guys, it's our first night here. We weren't supposed to catch anything today, but we just took the boat out for a little rip and we've caught loads of snapper. So if you want, you can just have, take a couple of fillets just on us. We'd love to share it with you.
And you thought, I know a stingray that appreciates fish for dinner.
I was thinking, I'm so glad you parked so close to us. When you were parking, I was thinking, you should get a little bit closer because you seem like such nice people. Obviously, I regretted all the negative thoughts that I had previously. Now that they're sharing our food with us. What's the freshest fish you've had? Is it in the Philippines?
I, like Gollum, have caught a fish out of a stream as it was going past and just taken a bite out of it because I was possessed at the time by a very special piece of jewellery.
Have you really done that?
No, it's just a joke.
Have you done something close to that, though?
The freshest, I've had a situation where someone's caught a fish, whacked it straight on a fire, and I've eaten it.
Yeah, it's
in Malaysia.
Doesn't really get much fresher than that, does it? But it was so amazing. They'd already filleted this fish. They were sitting on the picnic table next to us. Sun was setting over the sea behind us, beautiful like mountains, and it was just absolutely spot on. They said, "Go on, have a couple of fillets, save some for tomorrow." I said, "How can you eat them?" They said, "Well, you can eat it raw if you want. You should have sashimi." So I was like, "Oh my god!" I think it's just swimming around an hour before, straight onto my plate, and now it's been filleted and everything. So my partner and I just sat there, watched the sunset, and had, the freshest sashimi to my knowledge that I've ever had. It was so pure. It was so delicate. It melted in my mouth. It was beautiful, mate. It was absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had the experience with the sashimi, with the fillets, with the snapper. But what I will say, it sounds like basically a fish massacring holiday, this campsite. Basically, from the moment you arrived, people started killing fish. Let me put the count. They threw rocks at the stingray. Another guy had got a fish carcass, which he fed to the stingray. And then another family.
Same family.
Well, the rock and the fillet, yes, they were related. And then the family that parked too close to you, they've also got fish. So why is it known for that? Is it known for fish death, this campsite?
Yeah, fishing, we call it in the fishing community, but it's just nature of the area. There's fantastic blue cod, I was told. There's
that's just a cod that some children have taken up above the water until they've gone blue from the lack of oxygen.
I was told actually there's a fishing ban on at the moment for blue cod in that region. But the guy who had the fish carcass and the kids that were throwing rocks at the stingrays, he went, if you do want to come out and catch some blue cod with me, we just go 1.4 kilometres around the corner and that's where the ban ends. So, we can just go fishing around there. I thought, I don't think the cod know that though, do they? It'd be handy if the cod knew that and they could just come into the zone where there's no fishing and they'll all be better for it.
I'm not much of a fisherman myself, Adam. Are you? I don't have the patience for it.
So, little story happened to me, I think I was about 11 or 12. My stepdad's big fisher, a fisherman, loves it. He's a member of a couple of clubs, goes to lakes all the time, always has done. And he took me fishing once and once only. And I remember I caught a fish. And because I immediately got too scared that I had this thing flapping around on the line, he was sitting a little bit further around the lake. So I took the fish out of the water, showed him it from a distance, told him, like a wimp, that I didn't want to take it off the hook. And he said, well, bring it round here then. As I started walking around, I put the rod right up in the air. The fish got caught in a tree and the line wrapped around a branch. And unfortunately, we just had to watch the fish. It was just hung and it just died in the tree. We had to cut the line. We couldn't even untangle it or anything.
It's quite a good way to distance yourself, rather than taking a priest and bashing on the head, just string it up in a tree and watch. It's good emotionally distancing yourself from the concept of the fish.
I know. It was awful, especially being that young. I immediately felt the guilt. It was my fault. It was my fault. And we had to just witness it die. It was very traumatic. So no, not much of a fisherman. Don't really know anything about it. Would like to try it, I think, especially in this region. But the other thing that happened, just to finish this day off, and then we can go into the second section, it was absolutely mind-blowing. The sun had set. We were just about to go and brush our teeth. We were getting ready, wearing our comfortable clothes and that sort of stuff. It was dark. And then we saw on the horizon the biggest moon I have ever seen in my entire life. We found out after the fact that it was a super blood moon.
Oh, yeah.
But just to give you an idea of how big this thing was in comparison to the rest of the scenery.
I hate to say it, it was exactly the same size as all the other moons that you've ever seen. I don't mean to take the wind out of your sails, but it was identical.
Seeing is believing. And if this moon was the same size, then I must have been thousands of kilometers closer to it, because it was absolutely enormous. It was as if someone was raising a dinner plate, behind the horizon, and it was slowly coming up. It was so orange, so red, so enormous that I was like looking at other people in the campsite going, oh, are you looking at...
It was the same guy whose kids threw rocks at the Stingrays holding up, mate, have you seen my fucking dinner plate? My kids just ate a stingray off of it.
Yeah, kids trying to chuck rocks at the moon, trying to knock it out or whatever.
Could you get out of the way? Because there's a super blood moon behind you and I'm just looking at your crockery.
But mate, it was magical. It was absolutely magical, and it came up so fast, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen with my own eyes, mate. It really was. It was the perfect end to a perfect day.
Super blood moon, stingray stonings, snapper, sashimi, all those things in Adam's New Zealand adventure. I'm proud of you for confronting those kids about those stingray stonings, because I think it was wrong for them to do that and a little bit wrong for you to tell it here on the podcast. Want to hear about the rest of your story, but first, this message. Have you ever listened to Tripology and thought, my goodness, I want to hear slightly more besides what these guys have to say? If so, go head over to Patreon. There's a link in the description. You can hear 2 bonus things. One's called Alun's Antiquated Adventures. It's stories of me reading from a travel diary, all tales from my past lives traveling. Or you can tune in to An Evening with Adam.
An Evening with Adam, of course. It's basically 15 to 20 minutes of me reading news bulletins, travel news, and getting drunk at the same time. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, sign up for the Lost and Found section and the Patreon, patreon.com/Tripology Podcast.
Or just click the link in the description if you don't want to go to your web browser and type all those things in by hand.
Bye.
Right back into the conscious world. And Adam, I can't wait to hear about the second little bit of anecdote that you have prepared for us. Like a snapper on a barbecue. Tell me what happened next.
It's every bit as eventful. There's loads went on, and essentially this is like sort of an out and back, an up and down, in and out road trip.
You sound like you're describing my love life.
Oh dear. So anyway, all the way back down to Elaine Bay.
Oh, I used to date her in high school.
Elaine Bay. And this is where we were going to do some sea kayaking. So, I mean, I've not done loads of kayaking, but it's the sort of thing that people like to be interested in, isn't it? Kayaking. It's like quite... You know what I mean by that?
I think you do kayaking once and you can describe yourself as a kayaker. You know, it's one of those activities, quite easy, quite low barrier to entry. The equipment is the worst thing about it. Once you've done it once, you can tell people, oh, God, I used to do some sea kayaking back in New Zealand. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah, sea kayaking. It was exactly that answer that I kind of gave to the bloke that rented the kayaks to us. Have you done it before? Yeah, done it before. Yeah. All right, well, we'll just take you down the beach for a briefing. So there we were with this German couple.
Kayaking is of course, the one where you've got a double-bladed oar, a little bit like Darth Maul in the first episode of Star Wars. Canoeing, you've got just the one, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Sea kayaking, double-bladed, very much kind of like that.
I've got no Star Wars chat. I've got nothing. No sort of...
That's all right. I've looked at our analytics and there's quite a sizable crossover between the Tripology audience and fans of George Lucas's film franchise. So just trying to put it in terms that people can relate to. When you think kayaking, think Darth Maul.
Perfect. Okay. So we got a tandem. We got a double canoe, a double kayak. With, as you said, the lightsaber. And then we got the briefing, went out. The bloke told us, look, full day, whatever, $100. Just do a little poodle around. You got to imagine these inlets, these bays, these lovely little beaches. It's wonderful, wonderful scenery. There's loads to see and do there. Water is crystal clear. The weather was absolutely perfect. Sun out, a couple of clouds, dead flat water.
The biggest sun I'd ever seen. It was like someone holding up a dinner plate on fire.
You think that's big? You should have seen the moon last night. So there we were. We went out exploring, that sort of stuff. He did give us a couple of tips. He said, if you go a few kilometres, just round that bay. I mean, I was going to give you directions, but it means absolutely nothing on this audio podcast. And then you'll come to a mussel farm. Now, have you ever seen a mussel farm?
Yeah, it's like a lot of, we call them gyms in the UK, places where people lift weights, go on treadmills, that sort of thing.
That's it. That's the other type of mussel farm. But I'm talking about mussel, the sea creature.
Oh, where you grow them on ropes, basically, right?
Yes, you do. I'd never seen one before, but they basically look like, if you imagine an Olympic-sized swimming pool
full of rope
without the pool, but with the lines separating the lanes, and then they're submerged as well, and then you've got different types of mussels. He said to me, "Look, it is a private mussel farm, but if you go past, you can just steal a few." And I was like, okay, is it your mussel farm? He was like, no, but don't worry about it.
No, but the owner slept with my wife, so now I tell all the sea kayakers to go and steal a few mussels.
The owner's kids throw rocks at my stingrays. So I said, okay, well, we'll go and have a look anyway. So there we were, kayaking, about an hour later, we came to this mussel farm. Much bigger than I anticipated, actually.
The mussel farm was?
The mussel farm, yeah. The tricky thing is, especially if you're in a tandem, right? I'm at the back because it had bloody pedal steering as well, which is something I've never had in a kayak.
The sea kayak had pedal steering?
Yeah, it did.
Mate, this is so removed from the concept. So you're in a tandem sea kayak with pedal steering going past a mussel farm.
Yeah, I know. It's just a day in my life, mate.
Wow.
The design apparently is actually a New Zealand design, original. So that's one of the reasons why this bloke's got it. He's very proud of it. He didn't design himself, but another Kiwi did.
Yeah.
And there we were. What you've got to do is you've got to try and dive down because they're submerged underwater. If you want to steal some mussels and rip them off the rope, not only are they clinging on there for dear life, they're pretty difficult to get off. Your partner has also got to basically compensate by leaning the other way. Because if you both go in, you're just going to capsize. So she's there leaning one way. I'm there getting down. You can imagine the tension and the discussion. Lean a bit more. Then you've got to lean a bit more. The boat's rocking.
You idiot. Steal more mussels.
So we managed to get a couple. We've been told that we should try and keep them wet as well.
Oh, that'd be no trouble for you.
Oh, fucking hell. Wetter than the ocean. Yeah, that was it. I can believe it. I got a big mussel, big green mussel and big black mussel. I just thought, don't take the piss. Don't just get a couple, one of each. That's fine, isn't it? Yeah. My partner does.
How many different varieties are there?
There are only two as far as I could tell.
Oh.
I think it was just green and black. The green is slightly bigger. They're beautiful, beautiful colour shells. I love green.
Yeah.
I love green.
I'd have taken 2 greens myself, but that's just me.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe I should have done. But I got the mussels. I popped them in. We had spray skirts, by the way. So they're like, I don't know what material they are.
Sort of a neoprene sheath that goes over the sea kayak to prevent water going in and wetting your feet, thighs and genitals.
Exactly that. So I made a little dip in the spray skirt, popped the mussels in, filled it with water, just created a lovely little natural synthetic rock pool for them. Yeah. And then off we went and we basically beelined it for this bay.
The opposite of natural. in a tandem sea kayak on a neoprene lap stolen from your rope where you were born.
Yeah.
In a farm.
They couldn't believe their luck, these mussels. So we basically found this bay the way we wanted to stop for lunch. We had a little packed lunch with us, and as we were crossing the ocean, we went from another island, and then for about an hour we had to cross the ocean to get to this bay. And in the distance, we saw this boat coming, and obviously the enemy of a kayak is a big boat.
Yeah.
And as it was coming, I said to my partner, "Oh, we should slow down so it can go past because I don't want to be, doing backflips or something like that." And And she said, "Oh, I think it's stopping actually." And the closer it got, the slower it went, and then it sounded like it almost turned its engine off. And as it got closer,
oh fuck, stealth mode.
I could see that it was the Harbour Patrol, and there were people in uniform on the boat.
They're looking for mussel thieves as well, aren't they? Yeah. What have you got in your neoprene bowl there, mate?
The boat was enormous, and the bloke who stepped off of it, they came right up to us, super slow. As to not create any waves. But yeah, he basically, I was shitting myself. I was thinking, oh, fucking hell, I knew we shouldn't have taken those mussels. Like, what the fuck?
The mussels were like, crikey, what's that smell? The mussels closed up.
Oh, bloody hell, these neoprene spray skirts are good. So yeah, I was obviously feeling very guilty, and I thought, we shouldn't have done that. The bloke said it was be fine. This is obviously their, like, I don't know, private security or something like that. And he was like, "Hi there, guys, you all right?" I was like, yeah, we're fine. I was trying to hide the mussels with my elbow and put my arm over them.
Yeah.
He went, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I've been in the gym. Yeah, thanks for noticing. This top used to have sleeves." And I said,
they call me the Incredible Bulk.
I said, yeah, we're good, thanks. Yeah, can we help at all? He was like, "No, this was just Harbour Patrol. We're just driving around, making sure everyone's okay, just making sure everyone's having a good time,
checking if any foreign twats have stolen our mussels."
But it's so typical of New Zealand, mate. It's so typical of New Zealand. And he's just like, "Yeah, you're having a good day," and we were like, "Yeah, we're having a great day." He said, "So, have you done any kayaking before?" And we were like, Yeah, we've done a bit. All right, well, so you're happy with the currents, weather's okay, you're not going to if you get stranded, just wave your arms around and we'll have our eyes on you anyway. Whereabouts you from? And I was like, "Yeah, from England." And yes, it turned into like a 20-minute chat just in the middle of the water. They were like really interested in what we were doing. And he was like, "All right, yeah, well, we got our eyes on you. If you get in trouble, we'll come and rescue you." I don't know if it was like, was it a test or what? Should I have just owned up and gone, "All right, I stole the mussels"?
Yeah, I think they were testing you because you have 2 live creatures in your lap.
Yeah.
How were they responding to the conversation? Were they sort of moving around? Were they closing and opening?
Oh, you like trying to raise sort of alarm bells or something like that? Try and make
yeah, like someone in the boot of a car trying to alert the police at a traffic stop. The mussels like,
is it blowing bubbles up to the top, trying to catch their eye? But they didn't. No, I mean they just basically drove. "All right, guys, have a fantastic time. Explore the area, be safe, and all this sort of stuff." And then we went off. We had lunch. Came back, mussels still intact, still wet as anything, and then gave the kayaks back at the end of the day, absolutely exhausted. The one thing is with this region, everything looks quite similar unless there's like a very small village there. So you think you're in one bay, and you're actually in a different one. You're just reading this bloody laminated map and all this sort of stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Gave the kayaks back. The bloke that we rented them from let us have a shower in his house, which was really nice. And then we drove all the way back to Nelson. And the two mussels, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I cooked them in true backpacker van life fashion. We parked on a Freedom camping site, which was essentially a car park in the middle of Nelson town centre, and I steamed them in a little pot whilst I was doing the Asian squat. I don't know if you can say that, but you know exactly what I mean. I was basically squatting on the floor, and I got the little gas cooker going, and I steamed these things. And the green mussel, honestly, is the best mussel I've ever had in my life. It was absolutely delicious. It was definitely nothing to do with my cooking, but it was super tasty. I know it's a funny setting to do it in, like on the floor of a car park, but it was magic. Again, another absolutely perfect day.
Wow. Well, can you describe the flavour of the green mussel for me? Because a mussel, I think, is almost too small to notice the flavour of, unless, when I've eaten mussels, historically, I've had a bowl of them. And after the 4th or 5th, you start to understand the flavour of what you're eating. Did you take little nibbles of the mussel to space it out a bit more? Or did you just wallop it in like an oyster?
Walloped it in like an oyster. I know people say you shouldn't chew oysters, but I often do. The mussel was similar in terms of how I ate it, but the flavour for me, there's like a bitterness that comes with mussels that you don't necessarily get with oysters. It's quite saline in terms of its flavour and almost a little bit bitter. It tastes a little bit. I'm not quite livery or irony, but there's something like that. But it was just very, but a little bit salty. Just delicious, man. It was just very, very. It was like the flavour of a mussel, which you have had, but exaggerated and concentrated. It was it was just highly, highly recommend getting your hands on some farmed green mussels if you can.
Amazing, Adam. I love that story. I love the thought of you in a little pedal-controlled sea kayak whipping around. You're very much a sort of Kiwi pirate figure, stealing mussels, stopping people from stoning stingrays. I think you're becoming a bit of a legend in that country, and I'm looking forward to hearing how your journey there progresses. I think that's all we have time for this week. We're going to go to the Patreon section, Lost and Found, link in the description. Next week on Tropology is a very exciting episode. It's the last episode that I'm going to record here in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I'm going to go all the way to a country that I'll disclose next week. It's not Japan, but you're not too far off. Let's go there right now, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks ever so much, guys. We'll see you there. Bye.
Bye.